Hey guys, I'm Mr. Genie here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review The Boogeyman. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out small YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel. And fourth to my Discord server, where you can join, collab, and chill and do all that cool stuff. And chilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into The Boogeyman. So I had seen the trailer for this, or I suppose as much of a trailer as you can count this as, for this movie. And it was one of those ones that was like, oh, this is going to be one of those scary, scary movies. And then you watch it and it's like, oh, it's not okay. So yeah, we'll get into it. Anyway, the movie starts out with a young girl named Annie. She's like a babe girl. She's like crying. You hear some voices. And all you hear is a crying that is cut off abruptly. But then we cut to a young woman named Sadie. And her younger sister named Sawyer, who has this light ball, and she rolls it around to the dark part of the room to set us up for points later in the movie. So yeah, we learn that their father is a psychiatrist and is frequently being visited by people. He works from home. So yeah. Anyway, we see that Sadie goes to the big old high school, and she has a dead mom, which means people are weirded out by that, or treat her differently, because that always gets that weird sort of vibe. But while she's trying to act aloof and alone, she puts in some earbuds so that way we can get some internal music for our external music score. Conveniently. But as she's grouped up by her quote-unquote friends, one of them being a lot closer and the rest of them being a lot more distant, and one of them even more so being what you can consider the bitchy friend, if anything. But nonetheless, she gets out of school or leaves. All the while, the father, the psychiatrist, gets a visitor in the name of Lester, who talks about how he's been accused of killing his own kids. And all within a year of each other. And he went to the father specifically because he would know that he could possibly connect being a father himself. So that goes not so well, though. It cuts to the sister returning home, older sister Sadie returning home a little bit quicker, using the washing machine. But we start to see our little figments start to show up here, standing in the background. She feels a sense and then gets a little bit of a knockover. So she's the first one who gets, alluded to by this presence. But loud noises start to build up, and then she calls out for her dad. Unfortunately, as she's looking around, she's the one who comes across that man we saw earlier, the Lester guy, but this time he's hung himself by the time we see him. And we see the father talking as we cut to some point in the future when the cops arrive, to the cops about how this guy was going on about some sort of shadow monster. All the while, the dad, then, it's like later on in the night, checks under the bed for Sawyer, then towards the back door, and like teases her a bit, I guess. And after that, and after a little bit of time, she checks in on her older sister. So she gets a little bit of a slam on the door, which, this is referring to Sawyer, I think, in my notes. I think I mixed up their names at some point in my review notes. But she checks under her bed and tosses that light ball to see her first glimpse of this dark creature. This is where Sadie gets visited by Sawyer, because she doesn't want to be in that room anymore. She's trying to excuse, or explain her situation. And the older sister sees that the younger sister has this tooth problem, so they use the terrible door trick where they tie the tooth to the door through a little string. This is a terrible idea, by the way. This is something I've never done, and I never know why people do this, but it just looks awful. It looks like it can potentially do more damage than it's worth. Anyways, speaking of more damage than it's worth, the door slams on its own. And for some reason, the old sister's like, yeah, I've been experiencing stuff so far, but I'm the one apologizing and not being like, that's weird, I didn't do that at all. And we see the tooth go away. And we also learned that these two, the younger siblings, they go to see a different psychiatrist, which I'm pretty sure this is how it's done, professionally. A licensed psychiatrist has, their own side psychiatrist of, in case they're, the ones getting, the situation all messed up. And then, for if you have, a family, in this case, they also would have to have a different psychiatrist, because, it's some sort of, rule against, emotional ties and all that stuff. Anyway, so this psychiatrist uses this red light that is, that flickers, to bright red to dark. And it goes longer and longer, and the little sister is not having fun after a bit, after it starts to, really get in there. And she has her door knocked on when she's home later on. So she brings the ball with her and kicks it down this hallway, and then it goes away. All the while, Sadie is doing her own research, listening to some of the recordings, and is continue to look around. And these two events are going back and forth between each other. So Sadie ends up downstairs, and then Sawyer ends up joining her. All the while, she's looking at this picture of what this creature looks like. And then we cut to her at school, talking to one of her quote-unquote friends. And she's insistent on going to the last person who is on the tape's house, so she does so. We see that the light, there are little candles throughout the house, and these dark weeds that seem to be spread across the entire household. And there are spots of an older camera are there, and we see the wife there from the household. So she's the one who warns Sadie about this creature and what its abilities and intent are. But as she leaves, she gets a little bit of her own spook from the creature, so she thought that she was crazy and then gets spooked by it not even that too long after. So the pacing of this movie is bizarre, and, what level of believability these characters are in towards this said creature does get a lot more annoying as the movie bears forward. Anyways, so the two are back home, and the father's in there, and so on and so forth. And Sadie sees that her father is getting ready to throw away this box that has old stuff from the mom that he's getting ready to just throw away, and she's like, "Hey, don't do that." And then she lights her lighter that she got from her mom and asks for help, which is going to come back later on. So she turns on a light to see a dress and more stuff, and even a different camera, a newer camera. But we then cut to them back at the school. This time they want to invite to go over to her place, while Sawyer gets offered to play the PlayStation to not interfere. So she eventually gives into that opportunity. Sadie does. And they're all in the room, one in one room, and they're lighting up for some cigs. But she does some crazy coughing after the fact and pulls out what looks to be that very same baby tooth, I think. Then the others pull her into where the man ended his own life and trap her, at least the blonde one among them, the bitchy one, traps her in the room, while the others are claiming that they can't get her out when she finally opens the door. And she blames them, as several noises and stuff and so on is going on. But the others are done after she gets out and slaps the shit out of the blonde one. So they all leave. And after they all leave, Sawyer's still playing the PlayStation and uses the button to light up the room. And then sees a leg and then hears some movement. And she closes her mouth and begins to hear her mom's voice. Then the screen turns red, because her character was being idle for so long, so I guess her character just dies, I think. And then she gets knocked over into the television, because the creature jumps towards her, and then jumps towards her again, and then knocks her into the television. So she ends up in the hospital. Meanwhile, Sadie goes to find the dad and tells him, finally at this point, that this being is real. And she gets accused of being high, so she goes storming off. Meanwhile, we cut back to the mom of the previous household spinning more traps all over her room and uses Sadie as bait. The lights begin to flicker away, and the monster indeed springs the trap. But the mom, thinking that she did enough with a shotgun, gets pulled in by the monster. As we see more shots go off and then her leave. Meanwhile, the father returns with Sawyer to the household, and Sadie's trying to warn them to not go in while she's trying to make her way back. So she returns home to find Sawyer already hiding, which means the creature has already attacked them. We see them even get souped at the end of the call. And she's wrapped herself around with some Christmas lights. Sadie goes to grab a stick of sorts, and she begins to head into the basement. And we can see that same sort of dark weed that we saw at the previous household now here as well. But it doesn't take long for Sawyer to join her in the basement. So they move together, and she almost knocks over something, but then uses one of her spray cans, which she just happens to have with her all of a sudden. I'm not even sure where she even got this from. But unfortunately, Sadie's stick breaks. And then we see her get knocked down by the creature and start to see her life get sucked out of her body or whatever this is. But the father joins in the fray, which gives an opportunity for Sawyer to run a little bit further, but then she pulls on so far away that her little Christmas lights go out. We see that the dad is trying to use the lighter, but it's not doing as hot as it could be. And as we see the creature slowly inching its way closer and closer, we see Sadie use it in combination with the spray can to make into a custom flamethrower. But it doesn't last too long. Luckily, after the Sawyer tosses some more stuff on it, I think it's like lighter fluid or something to light it up, she just tosses the entire lighter over and the creature to burn it, and the fire begins to spread all around the house. And they begin to escape with the dad in tow. We then cut to the trio later on, with the third separate psychiatrist, the one that the kids were seeing. And as the other two leave, that being the father and Sawyer, Sadie heads back inside the house for just a brief moment and sees this convenient dark-looking door. But then as she gets called in by the psychiatrist, she shuts the door. And that was the Boogeyman. So yeah, I think the pacing of this movie is a little bit wonky. And I do think that there could have been a few slower moments while also evading potentially more uses of both combinations of light and the creature itself. Like using the camera to actually take pictures, because that causes the light, right? They don't utilize that camera at all beyond it being in that household, which is that was weird that they even had it then. They have the light ball, which they utilize once, which is okay. They have the whole PlayStation bit, okay, that's a little bit creative, I suppose, since it's creating its own source of light. But it turning red and then the creature being able to just pounce on that, it's a little off, weird, and seems, I'm not sure if that breaks the rules or not. So yeah, in terms of who these characters are, they really hinge on the whole bit about the mom being passed away. So pretty much sell pretty much their entire character. Outside of that, though, we really don't know much about the characters, little eccentric, whether they have any eccentric parts to them or anything interesting. So there's that, which I think could have been geared towards the opening sections of the movie, and again, piecing that out so that way we have enough information about them to be like, okay, so these are what these characters are actually like. I guess the most I can say about Sawyer, she's a little bit snarky, I guess, question mark. Again, but it's a little hard to gauge. I have to say I guess, because that's as much as I can gauge from what's in the movie. With her like little bets with her dad and stuff, so that's the only information I can potentially pull from her. For Sadie, I'm not even sure. Like, she has this one friend, I think, but like, I'm not sure what that says about her explicitly. And yeah. And the father being a psychiatrist, I think that could have had a little bit more of an interesting element to it, I suppose, as well. And, like, because he only has, like, one moment of, like, the daughter telling him, and he's like, well, are you on the drugs or what? So I don't know. I think this movie could have been paced a lot better, actually, quite frankly. Could have used a little bit more creativity with how the creature is utilized in that way, too. So there's character work to be done here, as well as the potential for horror elements to be improved upon as well. But I suppose with that ending, they're alluding to the potential for more. So we'll see if they learn anything and if they even get a sequel. Who knows? But in terms of this, I suppose in terms of a score, I'll probably give it like a 5 out of 10. It's like somewhere in between. It's like pretty alright. It's like whatever. And yeah, that's my full review of The Boogeyman. And if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server. Any and all donations are greatly appreciated. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.